I'm Shane Begum. The Chinese president says the country is willing to continuously work with Turkmenistan to push for new progress in bilateral relations. Xi Jinping made the remarks while meeting with his Turkmen counterpart, Sardar Berdimuhamedov, in the Uzbek city of Samarkand. President Xi says China respects Turkmenistan's own path of development and opposes any external interference into its internal affairs. He says the two countries should expand cooperation in natural gas imports and exports. Xi Jinping will attend the summit of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization in Samarkand. President Xi Jinping says China is always a reliable neighbor, friend, and partner of Tajikistan. President Xi was speaking during a meeting with the Tajik President Emomali Rahman in Samarkand and hailed bilateral ties. He says China is ready to import more agricultural products from Tajikistan and advance cooperation in infrastructure, water conservancy, and transportation. Rahman says Tajikistan abides by the One China principle and believes that Taiwan is an inalienable part of China's territory. He says the country will deepen security cooperation with China and jointly safeguard regional security and stability. A ceremony has taken place in Incheon, South Korea, to repatriate the remains of Chinese People's Volunteers killed in the war to resist U.S. aggression and aid Korea. It's the 9th repatriation under an agreement to hand over the remains to China. The remains of 88 CPV martyrs will return home aboard a Y-20 military transport aircraft on Friday. As of last year, South Korea delivered the remains of over 800 martyrs to China since the two countries reached the agreement in 2013. The WHO says the world has never been in a better position to end the COVID-19 pandemic. Director General Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus says the end of the pandemic is in sight, as the organization says new coronavirus cases worldwide dropped by nearly 30% in the past week, continuing a weeks-long decline. The WHO chief says if the world doesn't take the opportunity, humanity runs the risk of more variants and more deaths. The WHO earlier reported that the Omicron subvariant BA.5 continues to dominate globally and comprises nearly 90% of virus samples shared with the world's biggest public database. Sweden's prime minister has announced her resignation after the alliance led by her party lost the election. Magdalena Andersson will now lead a transitional government and then head the Social Democrats in opposition after a new government's installed. Armenia has announced an agreement on a ceasefire on its border with Azerbaijan. Officials say they made the agreement with the involvement of the international community. International peace efforts intensified on Wednesday, a day after the deadliest violence since 2020 erupted between the two countries, killing over 100 soldiers. Russian President Vladimir Putin and UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres have discussed grain exports in a phone conversation. Guterres expressed his full commitment to solving any issues. They also spoke about climate change and energy. Caroline Malone has more from New York.
Well, it's certainly making food insecurity worse around the world, as is climate change. Now, Guterres spoke about an important trip he's just come back from, and that is from Pakistan. He was there to see some of the worst flooding he says he's ever seen in his lifetime, and he made a statement that was a very strong statement about how bad food insecurity is. He said there is a threat for a number of countries to reach famine this year. There is, of course, an energy crisis. Guterres says he sees that as being a harder issue to resolve because there are so many competing demands and different viewpoints. That's something that definitely needs to be addressed when it comes to the agenda of the high-level meetings at the UN General Assembly next week.
Iran says there's no change in its position regarding negotiations aimed at reviving the 2015 nuclear deal. The foreign minister told his counterpart in Oman that a lack of determination from the United States is the only obstacle in reaching an agreement. Iran and the U.S. have been indirectly exchanging views about a recent EU proposal aimed at resolving the outstanding issues on the revival of the nuclear deal, formerly known as the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action. The European Union presented a final text of the draft decision on reviving the JCPOA. The North American International Auto Show is back after a 2-year hiatus because of COVID-19. Electric vehicles are among the highlights. This year's edition is smaller in scope and more focused on consumers. 5 new vehicles are expected to make their debut. The event's also known as the Detroit Auto Show, and it's among the largest of its kind in North America. It was launched in 1899. And that's the news. I'm Shane Begum.